Here's where I want to begin. What I have been trying to do, and if you've been following me, if you've been joining our late night sessions, or if you've been seeing the posts or the interviews, like my interview of Attorney Ben Crump or my interview of activist DeRay McKesson, conversations I've been having, such as with the attorney and legal analyst Midwin Charles, what I'm trying to do in the midst of this chaos and this turmoil and all this upheaval. I mean, we already were in, right, a global crisis, a pandemic, which was already disproportionately affecting the Black community. And then here comes this blatant murder of George Floyd in broad daylight on the heels of Breonna Taylor, on the heels of Sean Reed. I mean, it's all just happening. And the nation, frankly, just came to a boiling point. And a tipping point. And so we really, as I'm sitting here, we're over the edge. Last night, just a couple of miles from me, there was just a big old bonfire in the middle of the street in Lafayette Park, downtown DC. And that's where it is. And I got to tell you, a good degree of that I just see as necessary because change agents, for real, are things that cause for combustion. And the combustion draws attention, and then you use the attention in order to have your demands met and in order for changes to be made. And that's what I see happening. Now, of course, yes, there's a lot of other things happening that shouldn't be. There's insurrection, there's provocateurs, there's people trying to draw attention unnecessarily. There are people just out there trying to commit crimes. All of that is happening. But in the middle of that, there really is an uprising. And so these conversations that I've been having, if you remember, if you saw the interview that I did with DeRay McKesson, one of the things that he said, and I'm going to talk about a few things that he said, so go back and look at that interview, and I'm going to expand on some of them. But one of the things that he shared was about his organization and the information that they are providing, the policy related information that they're providing. And that's Campaign Zero is the name of the organization. And you can go there at joincampaignzero.org if you're looking for policy driven, data based information about ways to curb and stop police misconduct and ways to make for healthier communities. And the reason why I mention it today is because it was highlighted in the information that President Barack Obama posted. So he, via all of his social media platforms, through Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and through Mediate, and on his website, obama.org, posted a shorter article that just has some key points like the state of the question or what's going on, things that you need to know about it, and then how to take action. So ways to learn, ways to act, and ways to dig in and be involved. And one of the organizations that was highlighted for ways that you can get information that's reliable and to figure out what reform would look like is DeRay's organization. That's also Brittany Hackney's organization. That's Campaign Zero. So go to joincampaignzero.org. I would encourage you to look at what the other document that President Obama wrote and said, we've put a few words together. And it's 153 pages worth of the status of police misconduct in America, the history of it, the data, the statistics, and then what kind of reforms have been introduced in the past, which ones worked, which ones didn't, kind of where we left off before Trump came in and began dismantling all of it. And then it gives steps that can be done. So I would encourage you, for all of you who are saying, I'm frustrated, I'm tired of this. Hey, Kim Lee, love you, sis. Love you, love you, love you, love you. Lady Kim Lee. I want to just point you there as an information source. So go to obama.org, and I think it's obama.org anguish and action. Obama.org /anguish and action. Aw, thank you, sis. I'm out here. And you know what, guys? I'm not going to try to send her business because I don't know if she's taking clients, but superstar makeup artist. She's a superstar, and she's also makeup artist to the stars. Kim Lee is on here right now, and she also is doing some excellent work. So I want to take the time to mention it, that she has been on hitting all of our TV channels, and along with my former professor and dear friend, Dr. Sharon Anderson, they've been sharing ways that entrepreneurs, small businesses, solo businesses can access the government funding that's made available, the PPP and other emergency funding, and then how to prepare risk management for when you're reopening your business. So guys, I know the world is on fire, and I know that all these things are happening, but in the midst of it, be strategic and look up that information. So go to her Instagram, and you'll see the things that she's posting there, so that you can keep up to date on just what they're doing. And also, her and her husband are pastor and first lady of church in the area, in the DMV, and are doing great work feeding the community and all of that. So I just feel like this community, we have to just give everybody a hands up, shout her out in the comments, whatever, go follow her, because that's what it's about. Now, that being said, if you go to obama.org and want to do something about what's going on with all these police misconduct and all of the civil unrest, and you feel like you want to pull your hair out, I mean, I have had people, you're welcome, love, I have had people just texting me and saying, if somebody has to die, I'm ready. Like, they're going out there in the streets, just putting their life on the line, and then people just so despondent, frankly, that they don't know what to do. So our former president, as far as I'm concerned, my only real president, the only president I have until prayerfully Joe Biden is president, President Obama, has taken the time to have his folks write out information after information and step after step after step. Read it, digest it, share it, internalize it, and then pick your place to move. Everybody can't move the same way. So what I was just saying about what my sister Kim Lee is doing, Kim Lee King, she's working in ministry, and she's working as an entrepreneur in business, and she has connections to people in high places to be able to assist in getting those things done. That's a lane. Maybe there's a way that you can assist in that lane or start working in that lane yourself. My sister Tamika Mallory is on the front lines. I mean, she's probably somewhere just regrouping right now, and then she's going to be right back out in the streets leading the protests, because that is her lane. Grassroots organizing, protesting, moving in that realm. Nobody, I'm for real, nobody does it better as far as I'm concerned. Y'all, don't check me on here. Even who gonna check me, boo? I said Tamika Mallory is the best in the game, and that's what I mean. So she's out there doing that, and she's organizing and training the youngins and doing those things. And if you're not following her, I mean, you late, so you should be. So that's a lane. And then there are people who, are lawyers, social engineers. I talk to Attorney Crump at least 3 times a day, every day, for the past, I don't know, 3 months, but our communications are never just sparse, but lately are more and more because I come from a background of working in government as an AG, and then before that working as a public defender, and then of course working on my own civil rights and crisis management. So whenever things like this are happening with those cases, that's a sweet spot of mine. So I lend myself. Some of his official work, I officially consult with Attorney Crump, but then others of it is just, what do y'all need? How can you assist? Where can I be? So if you're in that lane, if you're a law student, if you're a recent law grad, if you have been, then you should have already by now taken your legal observer training, so that if you got to be out in the streets, listen, if you are in any way, shape, or form connected to the law, don't go out there holding a sign. Go out there on purpose, in your discipline, because the organizers and the protesters need legal observers who are trained to be stepped back from the action and pay attention to what's going on, know how to get in touch with law enforcement immediately, know how to get you a lawyer if you need it, know how to take notes about everything that's happening, know how to intervene and intercede, right? And know how to make sure, even if you're getting arrested, that they have the plates on the car that took you away or the bus that took you away, the officers that did it, all of that. So that's a lane. That's a lane. Get in your lane. You can get the training online now because everything is online. So you can get your legal observer training online. Look, when I post this clip, I'm going to have that amidst the resources. So do that. Maybe your lane is being on the fringes of a protest, passing out water, trying to give people food, and registering people to vote. VOTE, vote. Right? Now in DC, Maryland, Virginia, tomorrow's voting day. What y'all gonna do? What's up? Oh, it might not be Virginia, DC, Maryland, a few other places. We gonna post up? As Reed would say, we're going to pull up on that voting, make sure that ballot gets in the mail in time. Yes. So voting is a lane for everybody. That's something we all can do. But registering for people to vote, calling, working online polling places, all of those things that from the comfort of your home, you can just use your cell phone 1 hour a day and make calls. That's something you can do, right? Okay, so what about what actually needs to be done if protesting is your lane? If you're out there protesting, do you know why? Do you know what your goal is? Do you know what the demands are? Do you know what we're asking for? Because frankly, I turned on the television last night and I saw the bonfire. I used to go to Texas A&M, and Aggie bonfire was a big deal. And that's kind of what it reminded me of. I don't mean to be offensive. It was just all these white boys with no shirts on just dancing around a bonfire in the middle of Lafayette Square with some barricades around it. And I don't know. I don't know what any of that was about. I couldn't connect it to anything that had to do with George Floyd, that had to do with police misconduct, that had to do with reform, that had to do with voting. Don't bring that Antifa, because that's not what they are either. No, that's not Antifa. But anyway, so you want to know what's needed, and that's the other way that those documents come in. So if you go to Campaign Zero, if you go to President Obama's site, you will see those things there. But I want to just give you some quick things. I'm trying not to be long tonight, but I do want to give you this. I spent 11 years as first an assistant attorney general in the litigation department, and then as a senior litigator in the civil litigation division for the DC Attorney General's office. I defended mayor, police department, fire, EMT, Greater Southeast Hospital, everybody, right, in the DC system. So like when you see the police chief, the current police chief, Peter Newsham, he's a former client when he was a lieutenant chief. When you see former Philly commissioner Chuck Ramsey, who was former DC police chief, former client. I mean, I worked representing them on cases when they were sued. So when I'm talking, whether it's to a lawyer like Attorney Crump, or when I'm talking to you all, I'm coming at it from the perspective of someone who has seen behind the veil. I've been behind the curtain. I know what happens when there's an officer-involved shooting, when there's been a charge of just a wrongful arrest, when someone has died, when someone has been arrested falsely, what that looks like, what they tell you, what they don't tell you, and why. When they're thinking about settling the cases, what the police guidelines really say, and what it takes to change them. And that's why no matter how many single individuals die, I come back to you all and say over and over again the same thing. I say it is not about one person and one family getting a recovery. That will not change anything. And that doesn't mean that we're not supposed to have justice for George Floyd. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that happens. That doesn't mean we're not supposed to have justice for Breonna Taylor. I'm going to do everything I can do to make sure that happens. Doesn't mean we're not supposed to have justice for Sean Reed. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that happens, and whoever else. But I'm here to tell you that if we get what we call justice for them, and what that equates to is whoever the officers were involved being fired, they get charged, they get convicted, the family gets a judgment, say it's millions of dollars, the millions of dollars comes out of taxpayer funds. So it's like we're paying for the change that does not come. And it's not that they shouldn't get that, they should. But what that ends up equating to, unless there are other changes, is that money being pulled from somewhere else, like a school system. I don't know where they would get that money from, especially cities that are self-insured, so the settlement and judgment fund doesn't have any other sourcing other than the taxes of the municipality. Okay, so if you live in Philly and Philly gets sued, if you live in DC and DC gets sued, that's your tax dollars. That's your tax dollars. And there are people who are saying it should come out of police pensions, that maybe that would get the attention of some people. I can see how that would be problematic, but I get the point. The point is it shouldn't come from the taxpayer, okay? But when you think of solutions, what I'm always saying to whoever will listen is the system has to change or there will be no change. We will just wait for the next shooting, the next death in the back of a patrol car, the next chokehold, illegal chokehold, or legal chokehold death. All of those things will just keep happening. And listen, it's no good apples and bad apples. It's not. I mean, and we can't do that. What has to happen, and here's my point, and I see that comment, but here's my point. What I'm saying is, even if you did that, those aren't the changes we need. Those repair what's already been broken. It's not prospective. It doesn't correct. It's not a course correction. Okay? Do you see the difference? And what DeRay said to us that is absolutely correct, and what President Obama highlights in what he wrote to us earlier today, well, I guess it's now yesterday, is even though we pay a lot of attention to presidential elections, and this year especially, this is probably like one of the most high stakes, most consequential presidential elections of our lifetimes, but that's because there's a madman in the White House, and so he just gotta go, right? So for that reason, it's even more consequential. But the mistake would be to think over and over again, as people do, that when you get a great president, really qualified, competent, conscientious, pro people president, that everything is going to change. Come on, y'all. I mean, that's just not true, right? So we can get a good president. We got to have the House of Representatives. We got to have the Senate. But even more than that, especially where these issues are concerned, it's your local elections. It's your state and local elections. And the very sad thing is that the vast majority of us are not voting in off years and are not voting all the way down ballot. So the youth who are the most affected by what's going on out here in these streets, they're not at the polls when the mayor runs, if you've got an elected DA or county prosecutor, when you're electing the council. So, for instance, do you even know in your town whether you have a strong mayor or a strong city manager form of government or a strong city council form of government? Do you know what you have? Do you know what their roles are and what they do? Because if your council is hiring your city manager in a strong city manager form of government, then you could have the best mayor in the world and your policies would still suck. Because your city manager could be a grand dragon for the KKK and be loading the police department, because the city manager in the strong city manager form of government, the budget goes from council to city manager to all the departments. So that's education, that's police department, that's health and safety, all of that is that line. And your mayor is more ceremonial. I mean, the mayor, he or she sits as a member with the council and handles certain functions, but the administrative functions. So here's a really good for instance. Y'all know Galveston is my hometown, right? Galveston is a strong city manager form of government. My very first job, I was still in high school, was working for City of Galveston City Hall, and former city manager, who was the first Black city manager for Galveston, Texas, Douglas Matthews, was my boss, my very first boss. And I worked directly for him, and I worked for tax reinvestment zones. In a strong city manager form of government, we lived for those council cycles. And when Doug was trying to get some money so that we could do rec centers for kids, so that we could add to budget for the police force, so that we could increase qualifications, all that got approved through the council. He would have to go and justify his budget to the council. So a few months ago, way back when, I won't say things I can't say about it, but y'all remember when in my hometown, that unfortunate circumstance with the horses and the guy with the rope, they were arresting him. They said he was resisting arrest, and so they essentially carried him down the street. Well, the current city manager is one of my former classmates. They needed a consult. My consult was not with the mayor. My consult was with the city manager. and the city attorney and the chief of police. I don't even know where the mayor was. Four conversations. Never talked to him. So I say that to say, if you're in that form of government, then, as DeRay told us, sweeping changes can be handled at that level, the mayor level, the city council level, the chief of police level. So if you need for chokeholds to be eliminated, which we do federally, but we don't have to wait for it to happen federally, because I'm here to tell you, what is it, June 1st or June 2nd now? Ain't nothing happened until this crazy man leaves office and he takes that renegade non-attorney general, his personal attorney who's masquerading as the attorney general with him. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Mitch McConnell in the Senate, it's not going to happen. So it can happen on the local level, though. Your mayor, your city council, they're still meeting regularly. They can change it with a vote. Police guidelines can change. A chief of police can recommend a change to guidelines on a Monday. It can get voted on a Friday. They can have new guidelines the following week. Now, don't you want to be in that process? Shouldn't you show up for every council member, in person or virtual, making your opinion known? Because body cams got decided on the local level before anything happened federally. Increased officer hiring requirements, local level. Chokeholds or any other illegal measures, local level. Sensitivity training. Race, sex, mental training, local level. So, come on, guys. If we're making demands, then we're making immediate demands where we live. Because if we can't control what happens in the country, the very least we can do is get our neighbors together and get their neighbors and their neighbors and their neighbors and say, look at here. This town only has 6,000 people and 20% of them are at your front door demanding change. And you can get change. So, as DeRay said and President Obama said, where your protests are concerned and where you're voting, don't miss a single vote. Be involved in knowing who represents your issues. Require that on the local level. Prosecutors. Do you know if yours is elected or appointed? Are you involved in that election process? Are you trying to get someone who cares about these issues? I can't tell you. I can't begin to describe. We talked about it last time, so I'm not going to get into it. But the level of discretion and power that's in the hands of a prosecutor. We waiting on a prosecutor right now to charge 3 more people with murder. And the governor doesn't have to approve it. Am I glad it's in Keith Ellison's hands? Yes, I am. But do I look at him the same way I look at any other person who is supposed to render justice? Yes, I do. I'm looking like this. What you gonna do? And I respect him. I know him. And I'm like, okay, it's balls in your court. I know he's gonna do his homework. I know he's gonna do his due diligence. I know whatever charges he brings are going to be charges that he believes he can get guilty out of. And that's fine. But I'm waiting because I'm not on that side in Timor. But when I was, even in the civil litigation sector, say there had been an officer involved shooting and the officer was off duty and all the officer had was his service revolver, and he came upon somebody committing a crime, and the person who was committing the crime tried to escape and reversed toward the officer instead of driving off, Can you tell I'm giving you a real factual scenario? And the officer shoots, and the suspect dies, and the family sues. Who do you think makes the recommendation about whether the officer should be immediately disciplined or not, should be put on administrative leave, should be given representation by the city, a recommendation for settlement of the case? One person. So, higher you go in the ranks, the more responsibility you have, the more authority you have. So we need people in those jobs. We need people. It's none of this fight the power, and what fight the power means is that you're fighting the man. No, we have to be the man and the woman. It has to be us. And I don't just mean us saying black people. I mean people of conscience, people who are on the right side of these issues. And we have to lobby to get an understanding about what the right side is of these issues. So prosecutors matter. And all of that's on the ballot. That's all on the ballot, okay? And it's the difference between a DA like Marilyn Mosby, a DA like Kim Fox, an attorney general, right? Like Letitia. It's the difference between that and the exact opposite. And we know what the opposite looks like, where we can't even get them to bring charges. And then when they bring charges that are like misdemeanors, basically. So that matters. What else? So when you review the information and you're trying to figure out what your civic involvement can be, the list is there of all the different ways that you can do things. And what I'm urging is that you follow what our president, Obama, has directed, and you look at those organizations, and it's got NAACP Legal Defense Fund on there. There's a link if you want to contribute to the official Floyd family GoFundMe. And there are ways, basically. I mean, he's put it all in our laps so we can dig in now. I can't even say it all on here. I'm working on a piece, though, where just me and a couple of friends talk through what we see just from our different experience levels as immediate reforms that are necessary in all 50 states. But that can be done individually and done in hot spots and hot zones. So for instance, I find all of these Mayor de Blasio comments amusing. I mean, he's so down, right? He's so woke. But he's the one who put chokeholds back on the books in New York City. They're legal right now. Put up or shut up. And that's something he can change tomorrow. And it should be. So rise up, New York. And not just, breaking windows and stuff. I know we're all mad. I'm seething underneath, but I'm action oriented. And that's what I'm just trying to get us all to be. Okay, so then last thing I have for today is the developments in the Floyd case. I hope that you got a chance, if you didn't get to watch the press conference that Attorney Crump and his co-counsel had, where they had the world-renowned forensic expert, Dr. Michael Baden, and an additional expert, Dr. Wilson, who performed the independent examination, the independent family-ordered autopsy of George Floyd, and found that he died due to mechanical asphyxiation and or also known as traumatic asphyxiation, and it was from the knee to the neck and also from the other knees that were pressed, putting pressure on his body. And one thing that they said, and remember we talked about this the other night, don't worry about the crazy way this county examiner's report is coming out, because see, when they extended it, when they did the longer version today, it came out saying homicide too. It just isn't willing to make the call that it was due to asphyxiation. And the reason why they're doing that is because they are not yet crediting what we all saw with our own eyes. Unfortunately, God, we can't unsee it. But the examination that the family ordered, that Dr. Bodden did with Dr. Wilson, did what they're supposed to do. You take the known facts and circumstances surrounding someone's death and you apply them to the science and to the results. So, for instance, if someone died in a car accident and they're trying to figure out what the cause of death was, and one of the things that they see on the person is that their leg is completely smashed, almost to the point that it is severed, and there are markings on the leg. Well, if they didn't have video showing that the person was ejected from the car and then essentially the leg was run over, and I'm sorry that I'm so gory, y'all. Can you tell that I've been like in this field for a long time? It's all just the same to me right now. But I started my career as a public defender observing one autopsy a week. So I've seen a little bit of everything and used to do radio runs. So I used to spend my night in police cars, running around with the cops, trying to get perps. That's my life. And that was 20 years ago. But, okay, for my example, if you don't have the video showing that the leg got run over, then what they can't say is that the leg was smashed due to what happened with the vehicle. Right? They can't make that conclusion. They can only talk about the wounds. But if they have witness testimony, audio, or video, then they can include those facts. And so Bodden and Wilson, like any reasonable person would, yes, seasoned is a nice word. I think old maybe is a good word too. If Bodden and Wilson did what they were supposed to do. They took all known facts and included it in reaching their expert opinion, because that's what a finding as to cause of death is. It's an expert opinion. But important part being, we know it wasn't just the one knee on the neck. It was all the knees, right? Pressing the body as well as the neck. So it's not just that Officer Chauvin who's been charged. It's the other two officers that were also participating and listening to Mr. Floyd say that he couldn't breathe, say they were going to kill him, say, all of what we heard. They all heard it and did nothing and kept pressure on. And that was the cause of his death. So we wait for charges. And that's the other thing that we should be doing. Calling. And now, listen, we don't take it easy on the bruh, because the bruh is not in charge, right? So now we got to call Ellison's office. We got to call everybody who works under him. And we got to be demanding the same stuff. We got to be writing and we got to be emailing. We have to. All of them need to be charged. The cause of death was the knee, the pressure to the body at the different points. The officer who was standing guard will also be charged just the same, because he has a duty to help and a duty to protect, and he ignored a citizen's cries for help on the ground who was being assaulted and should have intervened before the citizen was murdered. And he ignored the cries of the witnesses begging him to intervene. So yes, the charge will be the same, whether you were an accomplice or whether you were actually doing the action. Yes, there should be 4 officers. Not 1 for murder, but 4. 4 murderers. Premeditation really isn't there. Yeah, I'll start trying to weave in some questions, not in the way that you think. But premeditation doesn't have to be like day before, week before, even morning before. I know there's evidence that Chauvin and Mr. Floyd knew each other and et cetera and so on. But for all of them to be involved in concert, it's not necessary that they had a cohesive plan. Premeditation actually can be from the time that you start assaulting somebody till 4 minutes later, right? Because what Dr. Bodden said that I also think is devastating and important is that he opines that Mr. Floyd died 3.5 to 4 minutes into the 8 minutes of the video that we can see of the time that the knee was on the neck. So the video starts like 30 seconds after they got him down there, and we watch what I'm telling you, even though I knew he had already died when I was watching it the first couple times, I was hoping, please, Lord, just let this have been where he was passed out, that he blacked out and then had some opportunity to be revived. But no, what we watched was a man die. Because as Attorney Crump pointed out today, that ambulance was a hearse. Because he never regained consciousness. They never got a pulse out of him. They tried to shock him once, and there was no movement. Everything was flatlined, and they worked for an hour trying to get something, and got nothing. So that's murder. That's murder. And so we've just got to keep a close eye on the case. And I would hope that we would honor the family's wishes, which is for peace. They are saying that is the kind of person that George Floyd was, and that is what he would want. And that doesn't mean don't protest. That doesn't mean don't march. That means don't burn your own house down, as Killer Mike would say. Don't do that for the sake of this. But do something. Okay, let me get some questions. There was a question earlier about 3rd-degree murder, and the difference is that it basically is not a specific intent crime. It's still murder, which is different than like manslaughter, which is the crime underneath it that they've charged for. But it does not require you to have specific malice aforethought, which is what it is when you have the intent to murder or 1st-degree murder, that you have come up with a plan ahead of time, had time to formulate that plan, and then executed it. This is more akin to gross, reckless negligence, where you absolutely should have known and had a duty to do something different than what you did. I don't know what the chances are of upgrading it. I don't know that any other facts will come in on Chauvin that would make them think they have a better case for 1st degree. if facts came in like that, it would have to be like, I'm just throwing out, say they find out next week that these two had a prior altercation, that there was a history of bad blood because they worked together, or that there was something recent that had happened where threats or words or something went back and forth, or there had been some exchanges, prior exchanges, where Mr. Floyd had attempted to pass money or something, then maybe we'd be looking at something different. But we do know that they were called to the scene that day. They didn't stop on their own. They didn't just see him on the side of the road. They were called there that day to do a job. Apparently not. I'm looking at were there body cameras, and it's seeming like no. But I'm sure there's other footage that we don't have yet. It could take a long time to go to trial. Yes. It could. I mean, we don't know. Obviously, defendants have a constitutional right to a speedy trial, but sometimes they don't want one. Sometimes they want a whole bunch of motions going back and forth. With police cases, sometimes it takes longer because there are a few issues along the way that are appealable. Like they're going to have to figure out on I don't want to get too heady, but there may be state claims, there may be federal claims. They're going to have to figure out whether the police officers have what's called qualified immunity, because they were doing something in the course of their job and they had a reasonable basis for doing what they did. That doesn't mean that the city won't still end up responsible, but it's a way that the individual officers end up not being responsible. And that stuff happens by motion. Everybody starts throwing paper here and there, and then no matter which side the judge rules on, it's appealable. So that could go up, and that'll make things stretch out. Okay, have you not been on here this whole time? Who's saying, can citizens do something besides record to stop brutality? Yes, all the stuff we just talked about, you can do. You need to be asking for reforms of policing, and asking for better hiring practices, and asking for oversight, and asking for accountability, so that bad cops who have multiple complaints against them for misconduct are kicked off of the force. All of those things would make for less brutality at the point that an officer comes in. But I want to remind you of what DeRay said, which I also agree with strongly. When you're talking about policing and making for less of this police misconduct and police brutality and police involved shooting deaths, police come in when something has gone wrong in a community. So they're always on the tail end. What you really want to do is decrease the presence of police in the community, decrease the need for police in the community, take some of the power away from law enforcement as a dominant feature in the community. And we talked about it the last time, like the difference between so-called high crime communities, or which are really poor communities, lower socioeconomic neighborhoods and communities, and ones that are middle class, even lower middle class, where they don't see police until they call for them, and they rarely call for them. They don't regularly have police going through their neighborhoods. They don't have police parked on every corner. They don't have police at the bottom of their buildings. They don't have police guarding their stores. So the research and the data show that if you put investments into communities, if you're putting community, cultural, educational, health, grocery, civic, social activities for children, if you put those things in the communities, it decreases the need for policing. If you have jobs in a community, it decreases crime, job is the number one deterrent to crime. Job. And that's not saying anything negative about the person who can't get a job. It means that in our country and in our state and local level, making sure that there are enough jobs that people can qualify for. And I don't mean you got 1,000 tech jobs in San Francisco and you're expecting the brother who just came out of prison on a weed possession charge that he never should have been incarcerated for in the first place. He can't get no tech job in San Francisco. There need to be jobs in the community so that there's not recidivism where he's committing another crime and going back to jail, and so that he's not encouraged to be involved in illicit or illegal activities. Because most people want to earn an honest living, take care of their families, pay their bills, have the love of a partner, raise some kids, have foolishness on payday, drink a little too much, make it to church on Sunday, and keep it moving. I mean, people don't live wanting to be in a life of crime. That's just, that goes against everything about human nature and statistics and everything. That's just not the way people are cut. People turn to other vices, either through drug dependency or need. And so we have to eliminate both. That's a way to curb police misconduct, because we will remove the teeth of power from the police. And I want to see that day. I really do want to see that day. Okay. Oh, Lord. Yeah, just record. Don't grab something, whatever something is. No. The cops' personnel file should always be open. No. I don't agree with that. Because that doesn't mean that certain statistics from the employee file should be available, but I think that there have to be certain privacy protections even for law enforcement officers. Okay. Anything else? Okay, I'm gonna check on here, see what questions I've missed. My phone is so hot right now, it doesn't make any sense. Okay. Let me look, and because I promised I would answer these questions too, so I gotta turn D-Nice off for a minute. Get to the questions. Well, let me see. People keep suggesting blacks do not vote. Why is this stressed more than the politicians amending and reforming policies? Blaming the victim is how we got here. Should we organize boycotts or keep watching? Okay, that's Miss Me Right. You're on here. Yes, we should organize boycotts. Yes, we should march. Yes, we should vote. Yes, we should lobby. Yes. It's just like Reverend Sharpton said. I don't know whose program he was on tonight. It's not either or. It's both and, right? We do all of it. We do all of it. Okay? With so many officers that have gone unpunished for killing unarmed black men, Are they finding legal loopholes to not convict? And if so, how can we change those policies? Okay, let me tell you the sad truth. No, they're not finding loopholes. It is very difficult in the law as it is written, not sneaky loopholes, but as it is written, it is very difficult to arrest an officer. And it's very difficult to make the charges stick. It's very difficult to get a guilty plea because there's so many protections and benefit of the doubt given to the officer. Things are seen through the officer's perspective, and that needs to change. Ooh, we just got 47 seconds left. Yes, all hands on deck. Okay, let me check over here. Just see. Oh, with 30 seconds? Sorry, y'all, if I missed anybody's question. You know I'll be back tomorrow. So, Obama.org, joincampaignzero.org, vote, march safely, wear a mask, stay home. I'm praying for y'all. Love you. If you have more questions,